the face of hatred. We're in the peak of the campaign season here in the United States. I'd just like you to stop and ask for a moment if the entire news media, if the entire global left asks you to hate this man, to spend every day hating this man, all I can do is ask you to think about it and ask yourself why. Why is it so important that you personally hate this man, whether you live in America, whether you live in Europe, anywhere? Who are the people telling you to hate this man, to wake up every day hating him, his children, and his supporters? Who are the people demanding that you spend your lives hating this person? If we look at how President Trump is covered, the news media has a specific goal. They want to have you, the global citizen or the American voter, waking up every morning hating Donald Trump. They want you to spend the day worrying about what Donald Trump is going to do next. They want you to think every moment that Donald Trump is going to end your way of life, harm the world, and cause mass destruction. When you go to sleep at night, the news media wants you to hate Donald Trump again. They'll create 10 new attacks against Donald Trump, seemingly on a daily basis. They'll attack him for what he says. They'll attack him for what he doesn't say. They'll attack him for his statements. They'll attack him for his policies. And I'd just like to point out that the news media does have a slightly different policy when a Democrat is president. Let's first a moment just look here at the live news coverage. This is the main page on MS-NBC.com. This news channel spends 100% of their time telling you all the reasons that Donald Trump is the most evil man who ever lived. Biden says Trump surrendered, waved the white flag in his handling of the pandemic. Hillary Clinton, Trump commuted Roger Stone so, quote, Stone would not spill any more beans, unquote. Hillary would know about that. Maybe we should ask Jeffrey Epstein. The news narrative this week is that evil federal troops are Trump's troops, and they are harming people in Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. Not one word about looters, destroying businesses, burning down police precincts, federal courthouses. You know, when Timothy McVeigh blew up a federal courthouse building during the Clinton administration, there wasn't any reporter who blamed President Clinton for that. When people try to burn down federal courthouses with President Trump, suddenly it's Trump's fault. Let's see what CBS News says. CBS News has obtained a memo showing that the Trump administration is planning to send 175 federal officers to assist local police departments in other cities. Well, CBS News, hasn't the president been stating that in every interview segment, day after day, for weeks now? So how is this an amazing CBS News revelation of a memo they've obtained? Then we have the smaller story. St. Louis couple who pulled guns on protesters charged. I've already done a video on that. The slant in their headline is obvious. The villains are the people defending their property. Trump COVID briefings set to return as he calls mask wearing patriotic. I guess it's not patriotic. You have to put it in quotes if Trump says it. Literally, if President Trump said that volcanoes are bad, you would see some of these reporters run up to an active volcano and jump in just to prove Trump wrong. Trader Joe's to change packaging after accusation of racism. Democrats demand FBI briefing on foreign interference. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Let's take a look at CNN's headlines. And someone did a piece on what CNN's main page looked like when the H1N1 swine flu epidemic broke out at its peak under President Obama. And CNN's main page didn't have a single news story blaming President Obama for H1N1 swine flu or the Ebola virus, because it would be insane to blame a president for a nonpartisan virus, right? At least if that president is a Democrat like Barack Obama. Trump's pandemic reversals betray election anxiety. It's great how you can just conjure up news stories out of thin air with zero facts behind them. Everyone at CNN is employed by a man who hired Donald Trump for The Apprentice television show. Because of that man, Donald Trump became a nationwide figure. So that man who owns CNN directed all of his employees to hate Donald Trump. Why Trump can't make the election about Biden? Experts fear crisis after the election. CNN's Brianna Keller fact-checks Trump. And notice there's no fact-checking of Joe Biden. COVID-19 no longer a priority for Trump. Trump finally agrees. So every headline is in terms of how Trump is the most evil man who ever lived. When President Obama was dealing with the swine flu, CNN's main page looked nothing like this. Why is it that a virus is the fault of one president but not the fault of the other? Because one president is this and the other president is that. It might help to go back to a book called Rules for Radicals, written by Saul Alinsky. This man was cited as a mentor by Hillary Clinton. Ridicule is man's most potent weapon. Keep the pressure on, never let up. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. This last item, number 13, is what the news media and the Democratic Party, along with the global left, have been using against Donald Trump since he announced as a candidate. The criticism directed at Donald Trump is almost entirely personal. They question his motives. They read his mind. You may recall federal judges stating that they had read Donald Trump's mind about his motives for his partial travel ban when he first became president. The judges decided they read Trump's mind and he was racist. What President Trump actually stands for doesn't matter. What his actual policies are do not matter. What his actual accomplishments are don't matter. He must be personally attacked. He must be fixed, frozen, and destroyed. This Rule 13 has also been used against the president's family and his children, and to an extent that we've never seen before in American politics. It's important that the Democratic Party never have to debate Donald Trump on the issues. Instead, we have to start with the premises that the Democratic Party sets up. If the debate starts with the initial premise that Donald Trump is a sexist, immediately he's on the defensive, and so are his supporters. You have to respond to the attack. Then the next attack comes. They say Donald Trump is a racist. Again, Donald Trump is on the defensive. And you just keep piling on the attacks. You never have to seriously debate any of them. You just come up with a new attack, one day after another. One day you say Trump's a racist, then he's a transphobe, then he's an Islamophobe, then he dislikes Latino Americans, then he dislikes Mexicans. It doesn't matter. You come up with a new attack every day. You keep the Trump campaign and his supporters off balance. You do this so that you don't actually have to debate any issues. It's following the rulebook set up by Saul Alinsky. If we go back to the George W. Bush administration, this same tactic was carried out against him every day of his presidency. The global left mobilized to label George W. Bush as the most evil man who ever lived. And if you go back further, the global left, often at the urging of KGB agents who had infiltrated their organizations, mobilized to block the legal and lawful policies of the Reagan administration. It didn't matter that Ronald Reagan had won the election. The global left doesn't care about elections. If they can influence and harm policy and block policy outside of legal means, they will do so, exactly as Saul Alinsky outlined. You may have heard about a homeless problem under President Trump. President Trump is personally responsible for every case of homelessness in the United States of America. This is a given. For those with short memories, when was the last president whose personal fault it was that we had a homeless problem? That was, of course, George W. Bush. George W. Bush was blamed for every case of homelessness in the country. He was evil. Bush wanted people to be homeless. Bush hated homeless people. He wanted more people homeless than ever before. Does that sound familiar? It's exactly the same way that President Trump's policy on the homeless is reported. Now, there are interruptions to how the news media makes this coverage. Oddly enough, during the 8 years of President Bill Clinton's administration, not one news story was ever written personally blaming Bill Clinton for homelessness. 16 years later, not one news story was ever written personally blaming Barack Obama for homelessness. You have to report homelessness as the fault of an evil Republican president. It was always reported as a local news story during President Obama's administration. You can research this for yourself. Go back and search. The news stories are treated as local news stories, not a national problem. It's only a national problem when you can blame a Republican president. Local News Channel 13, not a national news story. It's always a local news story if it's reported at all. Democrats worship power. Anyone who stands in the way of them accumulating more power must be personally fixed, frozen, personalized, and destroyed. Saul Alinsky laid out the rules, and the global left, decade after decade, implements those rules. Ironically, those doing all these protests, none of them ever share in the financial rewards of all this agitation. The only people that get rich are the Democrats at the top and the leftists around the world, such as those running the European Union. They cash in, they make lots of money, they make lots of euros, and the idiotic protesters get nothing but their own bitter hatred. They get nothing, the leftists at the top get rich. When you consider that, ask yourself why they want you to spend all of your time hating Donald Trump. It's so that you don't notice the buckets of cash that they're making off of your hatred. Thank you.